My daughter used to do gymnastics. I remember once when she was 10 years old, we went to one of her meets in some giant convention hall in Manhattan. All the girls from her gym wore the same sparkly black and purple leotards. Some of the kids were so itty-bitty, they looked like little chickens. My daughter was more on the chicken side. Each kid went out and they did the same routine on the mat with little variations, their legs all knobby and bent and not quite the right position, repeatedly tripping and falling in inelegant heaps. And then no matter how the routine went, when they were done, each kid would walk down a line of all their teammates and get a high five from each one, sharing these enormous grins and shivering energy and delight in doing this together as a team. I know this probably sounds totally ordinary to you, but to me, it was jarring. One of my core memories from when I was 10 years old is standing at the mechitza, the wooden barrier in synagogue that separates men from women, peeking through a little gap and watching the boys and the men dance together on the holiday of Simchas Torah. They whirled in ecstatic circles, a mass of bodies, some boys like squirrels darting between the legs of men as big as bears, and all of them, no matter their age, in identical dark pants, white shirts, yarmulkes on their heads, caught up in the same ecstatic celebration of their lives as boys, as men, devoted to studying Torah, belonging to this ultra-Orthodox culture and to each other. Belonging wasn't just for boys or men in my culture, but I felt awkward in female-only settings. My skin always felt too tight, my expressions all lopsided. I never knew what to say, how to joke around, what to chat about, how to hang out. The girls around me generally didn't like me. I was a nerd, weird, poor, very uncool. I didn't know how to be a successful girl, and on some level, I didn't want to be. So I went through my childhood as a loner, occasionally catching a glimpse of the ways that boys and men belong together and envying their passion and their purpose and their connections, but knowing that wasn't for me. When I saw my daughter with her gymnastics group, all these kids drawn together with a passion to learn and practice gymnastics, when I saw my kids' ease and familiarity with her culture, it was such a moment of wow, I can't believe I made this human being who knows how to belong with her peers so easily. Belonging is a human need, and it's one most of us don't meet enough, especially as adults. And belonging is always important, but it's more than important when we find ourselves in a spiritual wilderness, because then belonging becomes essential for our survival. Belonging keeps us sane, and belonging is at the center of the critical day-to-day process for getting ourselves out of a spiritual wilderness and into a garden of plenty. Belonging is a core piece of the wisdom of Miriam, and we're going to explore it in this episode along with Tao Te Ching, what it means to be a Miriam person, Twilight creations, the mystical meaning of wells, Lakewood, New Jersey, and a practice for bringing Miriam's wisdom to life. I'm Jericho Vincent, your local feminist, trans, Kabbalistic rabbi, and this is a survival guide for a spiritual wilderness. Let's get started on the path. When we last left the people, they had just touched down on the shores of dry land. Miriam led them in song and dance, and then they moved on. The people spent the next 40 years wandering a sun-scorched Middle Eastern desert wilderness. How did they survive? We're told that they ate a magical substance called mun, or in English manna. But what did they drink? The Torah doesn't say, but it does say that in the 40th year of the people's wandering, Miriam dies. Our tradition teaches, by the way, not in the way that regular mortals die, but in an unusual death in which Goddess kisses Miriam on the lips, and with that kiss, Miriam slips through the veil and into the spirit world. Anyhow, the very next sentence, after the one that reports Miriam's death, describes the people complaining to Moses that they're thirsty. They're dying of thirst. Our oral tradition teaches that the reason we go from Miriam's death to the people being thirsty is because up until that point, Miriam had been the channel of water for the people. We're told that Miriam had a special well. It was a rock that flowed with water when she sang to it. And for 40 years, she kept tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people alive in the wilderness with the water of her rock, which is called Be'er Miriam, the well of Miriam. As soon as Miriam dies, the well dries up and the people, they become thirsty and upset. It's not surprising that Miriam has the power to produce water from a stone. Water flows through Miriam's stories. When she's a child, we're told that she midwives alongside her mother, the Ivri chief OBGYN. So Miriam grows up surrounded by the waters of birth. And then she follows her brother as he floats in the Nile River. And then later when the people cross the sea to freedom, it's right there on the shore next to the water. Then Miriam calls out, Shir L'Adonai, sing right now. I think it's fair to describe Miriam as a kind of water spirit for our people and for us, which makes sense for a survival guide, both because water is essential to our survival in a barren wilderness and because water is a good metaphor for surviving in difficult landscapes. One of my favorite spiritual texts, the Tao Te Ching, says, "The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain." No matter the obstacles, no matter how unpleasant things are, water organically sinks and weaves and rises and finds a way. And as it does, it lovingly nourishes the seeds of what's next in whatever landscape it's traveling through. Like water, we make our way through the wilderness, never in a straight path, but finding whatever way we can and trying to nourish seeds along the way as we make it to the other side. So back to our story. Miriam just passed. The water has dried up. The people are thirsty and afraid and complaining to Moses. Moses asks Goddess, what should he do? Goddess says, take your sacred staff or branch, use it to assemble the people, and speak to the rock. It will produce water for the people. The mateh, the sacred branch, is a tool to gather people together, but Moses doesn't seem to understand that it's the gathering that's the catalyst for the water, the sustenance to emerge. Instead, he takes the branch, gathers the people, and lost in his fear and his anger, he shouts, "Listen, you Morim! Listen, you Morim! Are we going to get you water out of a rock?" Then he hits the rock with the branch, as if it's by his force, his violence, that he's going to be able to produce what the people need. Water does pour out of the rock and the people drink, but it's not a triumph. Moses did not follow Goddess's direction about how to gather the people, how to sustain them. He thought it had to be by his force. He didn't understand that it was the divine presence that emerges when people gather with sacred purpose that would produce the water. And Moses is punished as a consequence of this. Pirkei Avot says that if 3 people gather at a table and speak words of wisdom, they eat at the table of Shekhinah, Goddess. If Moses could have gathered the people for sustenance and used thoughtful words to bring them together, divine presence would have rested there. There are 2 songs of redemption that are sometimes sung on Saturday night at the conclusion of the Havdalah ceremony. One is a song celebrating a male leader, Eliyahu, who, the song declares, will bring redemption single-handedly, Moses' style of leadership.
Eliyahu HaNavi, Eliyahu HaTishbi.
The other song celebrates Miriam, who, the song says, will dance with us, who will bring us to the waters of redemption.
Miriam Tilkoli Tanu, Leadil Zimratolam.
That male leadership, that Moses leadership, it brooks no competition. Moses is the greatest, and it's his force of will that will make things happen. Remember last episode? He sings a song about himself. Miriam takes a different approach. Miriam speaks in the plural. She's about gathering the people together, reminding the people of the power they have when they gather. Let's back up for a second. What's that name that Moses called the people when he shouted at them? Listen, you Morim, are we going to get you water out of a rock? So in most Hebrew Bibles, that word Morim is translated as rebels. But because the Torah is not written with vowels, this word that's usually pronounced as Morim can also be pronounced as Miriam. So another way of reading this text is Moses shouting, listen, you Miriam people, are we going to get you water out of a rock? There's evidence that parts of Miriam's story were erased and appropriated by men in an attempt to shore up patriarchy. So when I see Moses shouting at the people, calling them rebels and Miriam people, my spidey sense starts filling in some details. I see a people who adored Miriam as their leader, a people unafraid of female leadership, a people reluctant to transfer their allegiance to Moses after Miriam's death. I see Moses shouting, and name-calling, and hitting as an attempt to seize the people's loyalty to his patriarchal agenda. But I am grateful for this record of Moses shouting at the people because it gives us that name, Miriam people. These were the people who every day gathered around Miriam's well to fill their cups. It was a community that met regularly, whatever else was going on, wherever they were in the wilderness. They situated themselves by finding each other around the well and drinking together from Miriam's waters. A river of love from Miriam bound them together, and a river of necessity and appreciation for each other as they went through the ritual of gathering the water they needed, a practice of survival. And probably not just water. The mystical master Reb Nachman of Breslov explains the Hebrew word for Miriam's well, Be'er, is a homophone for the word for wisdom or insight. Reb Nachman says that Miriam's spirit is eternal, and when we learn wisdom in places of suffering, we draw on the Be'er, or the wisdom of Miriam. Those Miriam people back then were drawing Miriam's wisdom along with her water. And Miriam, the eternal spirit of Miriam, invites us to do the same. Put the well of Miriam in the middle. Gather regularly for wisdom and practice. That's how we survive. What is the well of Miriam? It can be any form of wisdom and practice that we're willing to meet with other people regularly to draw in. So perhaps we can understand Miriam's well to represent the transformational power of gathering regularly to sustain our spirits with practice and wisdom. And this is the fifth core teaching for our survival in a spiritual wilderness. Miriam's well is a traveling oasis. Miriam's people are those who keep meeting at that oasis together, wherever they are on their journey. In the spiritual wilderness of this moment, the wisdom we need does not come from rigid structures or preordained paths, but from our ability to listen, adapt, and find nourishment even in the most barren landscapes, to gather together at the rock of Miriam's well, and to drink deep. Wells are powerful magic for our people. Look at the ancient stories. Mother Hagar finds a well in the wilderness, and her destiny changes from scorned concubine to powerful mother of an enduring lineage. She names that well Be'er L'chai Ro'i, the well of the living one who sees me. Eliezer meets Mother Rebecca at a well, which, by the way, the Kabbalists say is the same well as Miriam's well. Father Isaac redigs the well of his father Abraham. Father Jacob meets Mother Rachel at a well, and this meeting is the pivot on which the people move from becoming a family to becoming a whole people. These are small groups of people finding deep connection at that place where water rises from the heart of the earth. Wells were central to our ancestors because they often lived in barren landscapes and depended on wells for survival. But mystically, the wells represent the very life force of our people. All the wells, but Miriam's stands out. It's different than all the other mystical wells in the Torah. We're told Miriam's well was created in the twilight of the very first Friday, in the first week of the existence of the world. Kabbalistically, that's a loaded statement. The first week of the world, Goddess was in creative mode, figuring things out, fixing things, working hard. The first Friday night and Saturday are the first Shabbat, the epitome of total rest, total paradise. And the mouth of Miriam's well is created in the twilight between these two states. Mystically, that's expressing that Miriam's well is a kind of bridge between imperfection and perfection, brokenness and wholeness, labor and rest, wilderness and paradise. When we gather together and put wisdom and practice at the center, not just meeting for coffee, but meeting to learn, to do, to become, that's what sustains us in a spiritual wilderness. And even more, that's what transforms our spiritual wilderness into a garden of plenty. Each episode of this podcast, we've talked about Miriam practices. Spiritual chutzpah, chakema, wait for what, tahor he, it is pure, shir l'Adonai, sing right now. Miriam's well is how we bring it all together. In community, meeting regularly, wisdom and practice at the center, drawing sustenance from the rock of our group work. We do this, we change the world. I'm not being hyperbolic. I know how small communities gathered around wisdom and practice can transform the world. I'm only here talking to you about this because of one. A little over 50 years ago, my parents joined a wave of young couples who moved to Lakewood, New Jersey, so that my father and the other men could learn in a yeshiva there, founded by refugees from Eastern Europe. When my parents joined, there was a community of maybe a couple of hundred couples. They were post-colonial, post-Holocaust, countercultural kids dreaming of rebuilding the shtetl of their grandparents in the middle of white picket fence America. They put wisdom and practice in the middle, not a wisdom or practice I endorse. They chose a patriarchal and oppressive version of ancestral wisdom and practice. But the technology of gathering at the well is powerful whether we use it to heal or harm. My parents, like their peers, became revolutionaries. They had 11 children and devoted their family to the cause. Today, there are 4,000 married men studying in Lakewood, which has become an epicenter of the yeshivish ultra-Orthodox world in America, with over 90,000 ultra-Orthodox people in the town. They have schools there, camps, musicians, magazines, a powerful economy, enormous political sway, an entire culture that arose from small groups of people gathering around practice and wisdom. They produced the men dancing on Simchas Torah that I once so enviously watched from a crack in the mechitza. We need to build the same thing, in our own way, and so much larger. Instead of the men of my childhood, dancing like bears while some people stare longingly from the sidelines, I want us to dance the way Miriam danced with the people at the shore, together. Men, women, non-binary folks, and at the center, not patriarchy, not oppression, but the embodied wisdom and practice of our forgotten female ancestors, the embodied wisdom and practice we need to survive and thrive in the spiritual wilderness. We're told that when we sing to Miriam's well, it sings back. There's a tremendous spiritual power waiting for us if we set an intention to meet in this way. It's magic of the highest order. We can channel the ancestor Miriam by forming or taking part in groups that meet to explore Miriam wisdom and other wisdom that's mystical and life-affirming and inclusive and non-patriarchal. Do you belong to a group like that? If not, would you join one? If you can't find one, will you make one? This isn't easy to do. We live in a lonely time, and the political mayhem of this moment tries to erode our communities further. But life is hard in a wilderness. So choose your hard. Choose the hard of building a community that is anchored in wisdom and practice, a community that can transform the world. I know it might sound utopic, but I truly believe there's a wellspring of Miriam that's either coming up for you right now or it will emerge soon. Your job is to be open to it. And you'll know that you've found the right place when you feel like a potted plant placed in the forest for the first time. That which has been cramped, your connection to the communal body, unfurling so that you belong fully, no part of yourself obscured, your roots and branches drenched with life-giving water that fills you with the strength to endure, and more than strength, joy and ease and hope. Let's get out of this wilderness, okay? Let's each find our wells, our anchors to gather around and build cells, many, many small communities around the country and around the world. Make sure that wisdom and practice is at the center of the group you're gathering with. But that can look many ways. You can meet with folks to discuss Miriam's wisdom that we've explored in this podcast, or you can create a book club or a pottery practice. Whatever nourishes you and helps you build community. Let's practice accessing Miriam's well together. Get comfortable in your seat. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes or lower your gaze, I invite you to do so. Place your right hand, a hand of compassion, palm down on your belly, and your left hand, hand of strength, over it. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a moment, and then release slowly. Again, breathe in and slowly out. Imagine you're in a desolate landscape, barren, empty. The sun is burning down. Imagine you see others staggering through this wilderness, each person alone, each person dazed and disoriented. There's a rock at your feet. It looks like any of the other rocks that dot this landscape. But instead of stumbling past this rock, lurching forward, you stop. You kneel to the ground. You place your hands on the rock gently, and you sing to it.
Open up your eyes to the sunlight. Open up your heart to the sun. Listen to the drum beat so steady. Together we can overcome.
The rock begins to drip with water. Water begins to flow, and you cup your hands and bring the cool water to your lips, and you drink deeply. You feel the water moving through your body, nourishing you. Feel the clarity that the water gives you. Feel the seed of Miriam energy in your belly, that ancient pulse of life, a gift placed within from the ancestors. Soak in the water. See that seed growing rich roots that anchor you in the ground, stabilizing you, and a trunk that rises up your spine, keeping you supple and strong, drawing water up to energetic branches that sprout from your shoulders and crown, thick with blossoms of joy. And then lift your head and call out to the other figures in the landscape.
Take my hand, and together we will walk this winding road.
And then there's a small group of you, drinking from the well you found, the well sent to you by Miriam. And everyone's roots are sinking deep into the ground, and everyone's trunks are rising tall, and everyone's branches are spreading out in relief. And you raise your eyes, and you're no longer in a wilderness. An orchard has risen. The trees have grown into a forest.
Walk with me together as we cross this beautiful land. Walk with me, my friend, together, all of us, hand in hand.
Take a deep breath in. Know that this is a vision of prophecy for your life. Feel how oxygen-rich the air is. Feel the comfort of the company you've curated. Feel the well flowing over your feet. Feel the love of Miriam all around. Take another deep breath in and out. When you're ready, gently bring yourself back to the present. Open your eyes if they were closed. Feel the ground beneath you, the breath in your body. Miriam's well is with you, always. And I'd like to offer you a blessing as we bring this podcast to a close. May you be blessed to remember that you were built for times like this. May you be blessed with the spiritual chutzpah to demand and shape a new era of justice, compassion, and joy. May you be blessed with a chakemah to maintain equanimity with whatever unfolds and to recognize your moment to act, your role that you get to play in this unfolding. May you be blessed with tohorahi, the ability to never lose sight of the good that dwells within every person, especially yourself. May you be blessed to dance often and in good company, to Shir L'Adonai seize every moment of joy you get with a full and open heart. And may the well of Miriam rise before you, clear and abundant, even in the driest wilderness. May you meet other Miriam people like you at the well, and may the waters of the well quench your deepest thirst for wisdom, for healing, for the strength to continue. May you drink deeply and be transformed, turning pain into insight, fear into courage, exile into belonging. May you move forward with your community, knowing that you are not lost, not forsaken, but carried, nourished, and guided by the flow of something ancient, something enduring, something holy. And may you feel the tender love of the ancestor Miriam walking with you every step of the way. I'm Rabbi Jericho Vincent, and I'm so grateful to have taken this trip with you, guided by our ancestor Maor Miriam. This has been a survival guide for a spiritual wilderness. I'll see you on the path.
Walk with me together through this wild and stormy land. Walk with me, my friend, together, reach out and take my hand. Open up your eyes to the sunlight. Open up your heart to the sun. Listen to the drum beat so steady. Together we can overcome. Take my hand, and together we will walk down this winding road. Look around, and together we won't fear what we don't know. Open up your eyes to the sunlight. Open up your heart to the sun. Listen to the drum beat so steady. Together we will overcome. Walk with me together as we cross this beautiful land. Walk with me, my friend, together, all of us, hand in hand.
Thanks to Ella Joy Meir for the beautiful original music, the Camphe Edges Group, to my creative partner Ben Blum, to producer extraordinaire and wise man Joey Taylor, to Maor Miriam for her guidance, and to Ruach HaOlam, the oneness within, between, and beyond us all. Survival Guide for a Spiritual Wilderness is a part of the Judaism Unbound family of podcasts, made possible with support from Lippman Camphor Foundation for Living Torah.